So today's gonna be a bit of a different thing before we get into a news video because I just found that news out when he told me about a couple of days ago about that old Rick Fox thing.
Rick Fox.
Yeah, so yeah, Rick Fox. I got a picture with him last year. He was like, "Man, you're a good looking dude, and I wish I could play with you in the NBA."
Didn't happen.
He said, "Man, girls probably throw themselves at you in your town."
Okay, can you finish that?
All right, so we're gonna play a little game called Underrated or Overrated. And I'm gonna ask some questions about various things throughout League, and this could be an ongoing thing or only a one day thing. Depends on how he likes it. So, you ready?
Okay.
Season 5 SKT, overrated or underrated?
I mean, that's just ridiculous. I think they're insanely good and they've lived up to their hype. At the same time, people say they're the best team of all time, which is actually slightly debatable. I think that the only team that comes into competition of them is Samsung White. But
I personally think Samsung White was a little bit better though.
It's hard to
They
say
faced a lot harder competition.
To an extent, I agree, but SKT Season 5 had substantially better macro. And they did, like, again, not only that, it's hard for me to say, do I think they're overrated? I mean, but
Slightly?
I don't know if I'd say that. I mean, again, they're one of the best teams of all time, and they're really into, like, there's only two teams in contention for the best team of all time. It's them and Samsung White.
Season 6 SKT could be kind of there in some aspects.
I think Season 6 is probably worse than Samsung Blue, to be honest.
I think Season 6 SKT, when they actually got on form, they were actually honestly
They were
still
pretty
really
decent,
good.
but again, they didn't have the carry top laner. I think that Faker wasn't as good as this previous year, which he was still pretty decent. Bang was slightly better at that point, and so was Wolf, but they also had a pretty significant
weakness
in the jungle too. So yeah. I think that, again, I don't think it's on the same level as the other teams.
The reason why people would call them overrated is because of just how the game was functioning back then.
Well, anybody who says that they wouldn't function well in this season is stupid. The game has not progressed drastically since then. I honestly don't think it has, besides meta shifts. I think the game, in terms of just player-wise, has not substantially improved for anyone but the lower-tiered regions like NA and EU. Like, EU, even then, I don't think they've had anybody as good as their previous... I mean, their best teams aren't as good as previous years.
Well, because, like, SKT's challenges... They went through a lot of challenges in their spring split, and then by the time summer came through, they already kind of figured out everything.
Yeah, I just feel like they were so adaptable. They had the best play. Like Maron was an insanely good tank player, and by the end, like the turn of Worlds, when they started getting into the Juggernauts and all those carries and stuff, he was insanely good at that. I just think that saying they're overrated is insulting, so I don't want to say that. I don't think they're underrated though, so I'm gonna leave it in the middle ground.
I think they are slightly in both favors because their group stage was not hard when they actually did go to groups.
It's making it hard. No group stage in existence would have been hard for them if you put the best teams in existence.
They had the worst though.
Yeah, if you put every single one of the Korean... Again, I don't even make that as an argument because that didn't make an impact on how good they are. Yeah. It just meant that they had an easier way, which didn't matter. They made it easy.
They're one of the few teams to ever go 6-0 in groups.
They would have went 6-0 in every group. If all of the Korean teams had been in their group, I still think they probably would have smashed them all.
Yeah, let's see. In terms of, I think people turn it around in terms of players because people like Bang wasn't the best ADC.
I mean,
Wolf wasn't the best support.
I mean, if we look at Season 5, Bang was insanely good at that point. Still, he's solo. I
think Prey was still better.
No, I think that's a Prey mechanically was not as good, but he was a smarter player. If you look at if you just look at the Lucian play against CJ Ensis in Season 5 with SKT.
Do you think Def was better in Season 5?
No. Dest was in China, so no. That doesn't count. He doesn't count as a player until he comes back to Korea.
Oh,
no, I'm actually just joking. Dest was substantially good, but I still think that Bang I think around that CJ, like again, if you look, have you seen the CJ Ensis? I'll link it inside of the description. The CJ Ensis series Game 5 when they had the blind pick, or to send them into the blind pick game.
Oh, I remember.
When he played Lucian, he single-handedly carried that game. So I'll link that in the description if I can find it, and
he won't let me do it.
Probably not. So I think the biggest thing is I don't think they're overrated. I don't think they're underrated. I think they're perfectly in their spot.
They have a slight middle ground, I would say.
I think there should be a third option because I do think they've lived up to their hype. They did. They are essentially, if you want to compare best teams of all time in Korea, you compare them to SKT.
Yeah, because they had one of the best records in summer. They only lost twice. They lost their first series against CJ Ensis, and they lost one game at Worlds, and that was in the finals. Like, they were literally so good that their laners suffocated you in lane, and they beat you to all the objectives, and then they massed like a 10,000 gold lead at like 15 minutes, back when the game still had... Oh, man. Lane swaps and turret... Oh, my God. Lane swaps back in the day. Like, your lane had to leave Bang and Wolf because they couldn't take them on. That's how good it was. Like, you had to switch them around.
No. So all around, I think that I don't know. I don't know if
I would say technically you can kind of put them at an overrated status, because if you base it off of other teams that have won Worlds too, like IG 2018.
IG in 2018 would have got smashed by that SKT. I'm sorry, like IG was not one of the better Worlds winners. I think they're mechanically good, but they thrive off the fact that, again, a lot of the vision-based macro in the scene has been taken away. I think that, like, they would have lost in the mid lane. I think that Marin could have easily held his own against the Shy that year. The bot lane would have smashed IG's bot lane.
I think the bot lane would have went even.
It would not have. You're saying that Jackie Love and Balong would have kept... They're not that...
Because that's comparing them now to the SKT of then.
That's not even compared. Jackie Love and Balong are mechanically good. They're not as mechanically good. They're not as smart. They're not... Again, the game doesn't function through them, even though... Like,
when they do have the leads, they don't really push them.
I mean, again, they are not able to push them because most of the resources are getting developed in the other lanes. I mean, I like IG. I think they're really fun to watch, but they're not comparable to the best teams of all time.
All right, so he's saying middle ground. I'm gonna say they're actually slightly underrated, because I think people are really discrediting how good this team actually really was. If you watch the games back then, you have to go back and watch them. They were honestly just insane. What teams suffocate you in lane so badly that you have a 10,000 gold lead just by lane phase? They literally had lane phase leads just by their... I mean, Benny still was kind of debatably okay.
I think he was pretty great in Season 5. I don't think he was that bad. It was mostly because the tanks were so overpowered in that meta.
He always functioned in the tank meta really well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so G2 and Team Liquid. Overrated or underrated? Because people overrate G2 and underrate Team Liquid. Do you think that's right?
I think that's 100% true. I think that G2 is incredibly good this year, but everybody's saying... I've seen a bunch of people say that this is the best team Europe has ever produced, which is completely not factual.
They also think that this G2 can win MSI.
I don't...
That's how crazy that sounds.
It's not insanely crazy. Again, we've seen crazier things happen.
I know, but like that's from people who say that didn't watch LCK or they didn't watch LPL.
I'm just saying... It's not likely, but it's not impossible. I do think they have the players to just randomly go off in a tournament, especially if somebody has an off day and they underperform.
I mean, they are a good best-of-1 team, probably.
Again, but for the most part, I think that this G2 getting compared to the best European team ever created is stupid.
That's who we're comparing them to.
The best European team ever created, we're comparing them to everybody.
Like Season 5 Fnatic, Season 8 Fnatic, you have to compare... You have to compare them to them.
The best team of all time, again, from Europe, in my opinion, is Season 5 Fnatic. I think that...
Well, Moscow 5.
Moscow 5 was incredibly good, but again...
They were more macro-focused. Their players weren't the best at their positions, though.
I think they were great at their positions. They were less macro-focused and more so, again, it was more like... They had an incredibly good jungler. I think that's the biggest reason as to why they functioned so well.
What about G2 2019 stacking up against TSM from Summer Season 6?
I know a lot of people don't like to give NA credit, but I think that was probably the single best team NA's ever produced was Season 6 TSM. I do think it was substantial. Like, that was the team that I honestly think that 100% should have made it out of groups. They just moderately had a difficult group, but I think they were better than RNG.
They really could have made it out of that group.
Yeah, I think they were still better than RNG that group.
If Double Up didn't get one shot at Crown, they would have taken the Baron and won the game. Then when Splice beat RNG, that means that RNG is a game behind TSM, and that means Samsung and TSM got out of the group. It was all because Double Up chose to.
I agree to an extent. I think that TSM should have made it out of that group. They had a difficult. That was one of the harder groups in a long time.
We're harder than Cloud9's group.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, Cloud9 had Flash Wolves, SKT, who was a back-to-back champion, and IMA.
Are you saying it wasn't or is?
Oh, TSM group was way harder.
Well, TSM had one of the hardest groups we've seen in a long time, and
they always got like Group D with like the Koreans.
But they underperformed. I think that was a substantial underperformance on their part, even with RNG and because they were better than RNG that year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm comparing them to this season's G2, is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, Season 6 TSM to G2.
I don't know how good this G2 is yet, because again, they've only played a split. I'm not going to say either one is better. I want to wait until the rest of it, because like, if we compare like macro-wise, I do think that the TSM team was better. If we compare players, I think the G2 had the slight edge, because again, Wonder's substantially better than what Hanser was. I think Bjergsen and Caps would have been a fine matchup. I do think that the Team Liquid's bot lane would probably smash theirs. But the jungler is definitely, another one is in favor of G2. So I think that in terms of just mechanical play, I think that G2 does have the edge there.
But then you either have to go to the bot lane too.
Well, it's not just... I already compared them. Like, again, I think that G2 would be mechanically better, but I think that the macro would be the big choice because I think that like the fast-paced tempo would have to work based off of winning lanes, and I don't think that they'd be able to pull that off against that TSM. But I don't know.
So like, you're saying G2 overrated or underrated?
Am I saying they're overrated? But I mean, again, I think they're incredibly good, but I do think they're overrated this year because people are saying.
I think they're definitely overrated.
Well, I mean,
I've watched a lot of their games. They're definitely a good team.
They're a great team. I think that the problem is that people are saying again, I don't like the best European team of all time just based off of names because they're not smart. They're not an intelligent team, and I think that's going to be a big flaw into their gameplay because I don't think they're going to be able to keep. Like, if they can't win the lanes, I don't think they can beat any of the major teams in the world. If they can't, even if they don't take a lead against Team Liquid, I think they lose. And I think they're going to take a lead against Team Liquid. It's not going to be a problem for them, but if they don't end up getting that early game lead against Team Liquid, they'll lose to them too.
I feel like people are highly underestimating their players at certain extents too. Like, because most people want to compare them to beating IG and SKT. Yes, I do believe certain Western players can beat the Eastern players, but that's like, you can make that debate with literally anybody though. That's the thing. You know, like, yeah, Caps could be Faker, and yeah, I could go outside and get a wife, but theoretically, that's not going to happen 9 times out of 10, so that you have to kind of take with a grain of salt. Like, theoretically, people like to say he couldn't be Rookie. I mean, theoretically, Rookie is really good. Rookie gets compared to Faker, so, like, if he can't beat Rookie, how's he going to be Faker? Like, that's just... But Faker's a lot weaker than he used to be, so you can make that argument, too. So you're saying G2 overrated?
Well, I feel like you're just going to get people angry with this concept of a video.
Yeah. G2's... I said they're overrated. So TL, underrated or overrated?
I mean, if we're talking about early season Team Liquid,
ooh,
like when everybody was super hyped of them being one of the best in the world, they were overrated. But I think at this point... Well, I mean,
they're pretty underrated right now.
They're not extremely underrated. I mean, I don't think they're as good as the major regions. I think they're still the weakest major region so far. Like, again, they don't have that same core JJ they had at the beginning of the split that gave them a substantial lead in the standings. They don't have what's it called? They don't have a superstar on their team really, besides maybe Jensen to an extent. That is not going to beat any of the other major regions mid laners.
I think he can. He can definitely beat the weaker ones.
Like the major regions. Major regions have Rookie, Faker, and Caps.
I'm talking about he can beat everybody else before that, under him.
No one cares about. There's no. That is the lowest.
Yeah.
Are you counting Flash Wolves? That's the only other team.
And he probably doesn't even beat Rather half the time.
I don't know. I think he'd beat Rather, but we'll have to see about that.
See, with TL, it's like people like to say they're about as slow as 100 Thieves was from last year. I don't think they're that slow because 100 Thieves just weren't playing the game at certain points.
I think Team Liquid, again, they're not insane. Like, they're not that slow, but they are slow-paced, and that's going to be a big problem because the entire meta right now, even with the tanks coming back into the meta slightly, is still fast-paced. Jungling, fast-paced, getting a lead inside your lanes, which is not something that Team Liquid can do.
So I'm going to say TL is kind of underrated. I do feel like their players can shine at various points in game.
I don't want to say they're underrated because that gives them... I think that gives... Saying... I said G2 is overrated, but I think they're substantially better than Team Liquid, and I think if I say G2 is Team Liquid's underrated, that I feel like that kind of evens them out, which I don't think they're on the same level. But again, I do think Team Liquid is slightly underrated because
they do have star players in the roles. Double Lift, Jensen, and JJ are really strong.
It's hard for me to say because I don't think I don't even want to say they're underrated. I don't want to say they're anything. Again, I think what people perceive them as is what most likely they're going to perform at. Probably. I think they're going to win a few games, and that's probably it. They make it past the group stages into the quarterfinals, and then they lose pretty handily to whoever they face, which is probably going to be...
they're going to probably face IG.
I think they're going to face SKT in the semis.
What if they upset SKT in a best of 5?
It would be hilarious, but I don't think it's going to happen. So that's
pretty
much it.
Better than Teddy?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't think they're either one really, but if I had to choose one, I think it's slightly underrated. Very slightly underrated, because I do think people are saying that they're not even comparable, which I don't think is completely the case. I think they can take a few games off, but that's pretty much it.
The support role in League, competitive or pro, is it underrated or overrated?
I don't understand that.
I mean just a support
I understand
role.
It. I mean, people... I mean,
is it weird though? People highly overrate support sometimes too.
I want to hear what are people saying about it. I've never talked to anybody about...
Underrated in terms of what supports actually bring to the game.
I think...
Warding... You know, they're the ones who face check first.
Well, I mean, if anybody's saying that they're getting carried, support is one of the most impactful. Is probably the single most impactful role inside of the outside of the jungle, I'd say jungle will still probably be that, but single most impactful role outside of the jungle in the early game, and they probably take precedence over everybody for the first 10 to 15 minutes, and they have the most impact. They're really tanky. They have the most utility early on. I mean, again, they can straight up dictate the pace of the game by themselves without anybody else's help. They can roam to mid. They can get a hook in bot lane, force out a flash, and that makes them not be able to come up for CS as often. I mean, support is one of the most, like, it can straight up change the game if they do what they're expected to do. At the same time, I think that a lot of people say, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people say that they're not equal to an extent, which I honestly think until
most because of the CS.
Well, I'm saying until an ADC gets 2 to 3 items, they're less useful than the support, in my opinion. They put out slightly more damage, if anything, but at the same time they provide no utility. So, I mean, again, once the game gets past 20 minutes, I think that they are the least useful team. I mean, but that's only if they're not playing like Alistar. They can still make a gigantic engage and turn the game around. So, I think if anybody, I mean, I'd have to know what people are saying. I don't know how.
The thing is that, like, they're very undervalued in what they actually do contribute to a team. That is the underrated part.
I mean, warding is to an extent a big thing, but I think that is pretty much something everybody identifies. Everybody knows that support's a ward. That's not something people miss.
Because saying they're overrated is like saying that the other roles don't have any impactfulness in the game either. Because you could have a really dominant support, but the better top laner that's beating your top laner is gonna beat the best support. Okay, he actually has considerably could be a ton.
I mean, he's gonna make more damage, yes, but again, a support can get 1 to 2 lanes rolling, where so as a top laner can TP maybe, and that's pretty much it. A top laner has more free time to roam because they're not obligated to CS, they're not obligated to catch X waves and stuff. So they have the ability to roam around the map, and I think that gives them a lot of pressure. If you don't see them around the map, you have to back off because you don't know where they could be.
So you're saying the support role is underrated?
I mean, I don't know what people are saying. I mean, how underrated to who? No one's said anything.
Underrated in what they actually bring to a game in general.
When something's underrated, I don't know what the public opinion is. I don't know.
In terms of
that's you have.
I would say it's more underrated and competitive.
Well, just give me an idea. Tell me something somebody would say.
It's very undervalued and competitive.
No, just tell me what somebody would say about the support role, and I can give you
just in general, like on Reddit.
Just anything. I don't care.
Supports are very underrated because they actually do quite a bit for a lot of teams early on.
That's not what I meant. I'm saying, like, I don't. The way underrated works is if somebody is saying something about, like, again, somebody has their opinion about
like the skill sets,
like what they how useful a support is. I don't know how useful people feel like supports are.
That's because every support function is different.
Well, I agree with that, but I don't know how to tell you if they're underrated or overrated because I don't know what people are saying. Well, I'm gonna make it I'm gonna assume people are saying they're not that useful because I feel like that's something moderately.
That's most of what they say.
Okay, that's what they say.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, I think that's probably somebody that is probably made it to platinum maybe and feel like they have an impact to the game. I think that's probably to an extent what they believe. But supports, I mean, ADCs literally can't do anything themselves early on. So that's essentially the way this ADCs turn out is based purely off of how good the support does in the lane, how good, and the way the ability for the jungler to be able to invade the bot side is based off of the support and sometimes the mid laner. So if they're saying they're not as useful as the rest of the team, that's obviously stupid. If they're saying they're not as impactful later on in the game, that's obviously true. So I don't know.
I mean, impactful can go different ways. Like, they do build redemptions and heals and
redemption
shields.
Is not as good as 1,000 DPS from an ADC. It's not as good as a frontliner who can kill the backline as a top laner, or a mid laner who can burst,
or an Urgot that can run up to your team fear
like
one shot.
Supports are useful, and honestly, they can make extremely useful plays as like an Alistar 5-man pulverize. But for the most part, they are less useful later on. That's just the case.
I think if in terms of both solo queue and pro play, I think they're very underrated in terms of you can't discredit the little things that they do, like the playmaking, the warding that they do, how they can set up lanes, get deep wards. Those things really do matter early game because you yourself as a laner can't do those. So, all right, the last one would be the LEC format, underrated or overrated.
I don't even know what that means. Give me a rundown what you mean.
Do you think it's good or bad?
Are you talking about the playoff situation?
Yeah, kind of.
I've talked about it a million times. It's by far and away the best one in the world. I think their playoff situation is my favorite. I like the fact that the two top-ranked teams get to face each other in two best-of-5s. It's insanely interesting to me. That means that if they have some like cheese strat, it's not going to work the second time. That's what they're going to have to use to face them. So they're forced into play. Like it's coming down to all these cheese strats are forced out, and you're getting like standard play again. They have to outthink the opponents again. On top of the fact we get two best-of-5s of what are considerably the best teams. That's insanely fun.
Really good. I don't like it how the second place team that worked really hard to get second place gets knocked out if they lose.
They don't lose. No one gets knocked out.
No, like in the other formats.
Well, yeah,
like this one gives you a second chance.
Well, anybody gets knocked out if they lose.
That's between 3 to 6.
My thing is, it's more impactful that the first and second place team get more out of getting first and second. The rankings mean more because you get straight into the finals if you win, and then you go into the semifinals if you lose. That's exactly how I think it should be.
Yeah, because like 3 to 6 should be fighting for it. Well, how do you reward the regular season for meaning anything? You gotta give it something.
First and second place. If you get first and second place in the other regions, you get to pick whatever opponent you want. If you get first place, you get a bye, and you get to pick the opponent you want. If you get first place, I think it's moderately okay, but I think this format is by far and away the best one.
I personally think the LCK should at least adopt the LCS format.
I don't like the fact that they have the LCK format is horrible.
So you go from the LCK format, which is best of 3s, to another best of 3, into a best of 5. Why can't the first round just be a best of 5? Why do you have to play best of 3? That doesn't make any sense. You're in playoffs at that point. And why can't there be 6 teams?
A fifth place team and everybody else not making it is kind of weird. I guess they're going the top half and then the bottom half don't make it, which because they have.
I mean, 6th place is like that weird middle ground.
That would give Hanawa Life a way into the playoffs for once.
Maybe they're the secret playoff team that beats Griffin.
If they make it into the playoffs, they could be a different team. But I don't think they're gonna make. If they start bringing it down to 6th place, Hanawa Life's just gonna get 7th. They're not.
They're playoff cursed.
Mm-hmm. So all around, I think that the LEC's playoff format is the best one. I don't think it's really. It is debatable. Again, I think a lot of people might not like the fact that people get a second chance just for getting like maybe half a game.
They're looking at it the way Origin got blasted by G2 without looking at the actual aspects of the actual format.
Again, it gives us a chance of you can't just get lucky with your side of the bracket because you have to be better than this team twice.
That's a good thing. But last one, Griffin, Spring 2018, were they overrated or underrated at the beginning of the year?
You actually just said the last one twice in a row. What was it again?
I'm a big old liar.
You said 2018?
The 2019 Griffin this year, when everybody considered them the best team in the world, were they overrated or underrated?
First half of the split, they were
they
were the best team in the world. I don't think that. I mean, a lot of people can say that wasn't the case because how far they fell off, but they were the best team in the world.
It was like the LCK was really weak though. They didn't really have any competition besides like SKT and Sandbox.
SKT, Sandbox, I think Damwon was pretty decent at that point. Kingzone was good. I think they had a lot of good teams. I think that the reason that people like to say they weren't as good is because they fell off a cliff. But that's stupid. I mean, they came back, they got caught up by, I mean, SKT caught up to them, but if you talk about the beginning of the season, they were insanely fast-paced. They would never, once they got a lead, they would always close out.
They were so flexible.
Tarzan was obviously the best jungler in the world.
He should have been MVP.
Yeah. Chovy was probably one of the best mid laners in the world. I think that's moderately.
Because people like to compare them to the LPL teams. Like IG, certain weeks look better than them. Top looks certain better.
Well, that's called just. I mean, again,
that's just opinions.
If you think about it, Lakers every once in a while have an insanely good game, and they looked better than the Warriors when on their off days. If anybody actually watched the NBA, no team is going to look the best constantly.
There are certain days the Bucks look better than Lakers.
But all around, the Bucks are literally the best record in the NBA.
I said it like last year, and then they're garbage, and now they're really good. I have this weird curse, don't I?
So all around, I think it's stupid to say that.
I would say that they weren't even overrated. They were honestly just really good.
They were really good.
So that's it for underrated and / overrated. You liked these questions, didn't you?
I would like a knowledge of what's going to happen beforehand.
He loves that. Oh, about the what was I gonna say? About the the wildcard regions, we'll try and make it more of an attempt to see something about them.
Yeah, I'm watching a few. I'm trying to find a few of the games. It's kind of hard because a lot of them are kind of hidden. So I'll let you know when I find a little more.
Yeah. Oceania, I can watch them because there's an English.
All right, see you later.
Do you want to watch Oceania with me?
No.